Hi, I'm Andy, and happy Florida Bicycle Safety Month. Today is a perfect opportunity to teach you guys some helpful tips and tricks on how to stay safe on the road and walking down the sidewalk on the street. I'm going to be covering both bicycle and pedestrian safety today. Some of the topics I'm going to be covering regard accidents, accident prevention, and the importance of wearing reflective clothing. Here are the top 3 reasons of why people bike. Number 1 is for recreation, for mountain biking or cycling, like myself. 2, for riding for groceries or just running errands. And then for 3 is biking to work. Now, out of our population of 327 million people, only 100 million people bike at least once a year. That's still too big of a number. People who bike more than twice a week, it's about 14 million people, which is a low number, but in the past 5 years, the fatality rate has grown over 12%. You're probably wondering why that is. Unfortunately, Florida has been a part of the top 5 states for the past 5 years, and that is mainly because of tourists who are unfamiliar with the area, biking unpredictably, swerving in the lane, taking lefts without signaling to the drivers where they're going, and because of elderly drivers who are maybe having a disability and do not stop in time or drive too close to the biker. According to the Streets Blog USA, 54% of Americans are too afraid to ride their bike because of just getting hit by a car is too much for them. And the other 46% say that they don't have access to a working bike. And that's a big problem when about the majority of the bikers on the roads daily or just weekly are people who have incomes of less than $20,000, and if they don't have access to working bikes, they won't be able to stop in time in an emergency situation. So about 70% of all accidents happen in urban areas, not on the sidewalks or crosswalks, but just in the middle of the road. And according to the People's Powered Movement, most of the accidents happen during rush hour. So it's split 50-50, half during the day, half during the night. But again, like with a lot of traffic, people are concentrated on switching lanes. If you don't use your signal, that's also a big problem. But again, mainly for our purposes, we're going to focus on urban areas. So even though drivers are at fault when you hit a bicyclist, most of the responsibility does fall on the biker themselves. In our cases, distracted driving is our first one, with texting and driving, and then followed by drunk driving. And then for bicyclists, using hands-free Bluetooth earpieces or just texting while on your bike. Wearing dark clothing makes it extremely hard to see within usually 100 feet at night. Using a broken bike, again, if you can't stop in time in an emergency situation, it does make things a lot harder for yourself. Riding unpredictably and assuming the right of way even when you do have it. So cell phones, as you guys know, have become a daily part of our lives, and more hands-free accessories are promoted. But are they really hands-free? Our minds are still split between listening to music or texting people on the road, and it's very easy to miss a simple pothole that would send us flying into the lane. Now, while you are on the road, you're taking a lot of risks, but drivers do have a responsibility to keep track of bikers. However, if you can't see the driver can't see you. And these 13 bicyclists in this photo right here are not visible by the driver in this truck at all. And bike lanes are also kind of in a weird position. Usually, some places in Gainesville have the bike lanes going right next to the right-hand turn lanes, which means it's a really perfect opportunity for cars to cut off bicyclists. Or they are put in the middle of the intersection, which give them a high risk for people turning when they're not supposed to or just changing lanes. And even though these situations are difficult to deal with, they are avoidable, especially if you ride out with the safe gear. Although this second picture does look like he's wearing it correctly, his forehead and his nose are exposed, so he could still break his nose or suffer a concussion. So it's important that when you have the chin strap tightly around the bottom of your chin, that's parallel with the ground, so it's right over. And sometimes you can get like a little extra protective piece to help break the fall if you do fall face forward. Another important thing is to make sure that you use correct turn signals, so left, right, or just stopping. Again, most drivers don't know this, so in an event that you would let a driver know where you're going, don't turn around, don't start waving to them, just try to let them know and point where you're going the safest that you can. Another common misconception is that you should ride in oncoming traffic. That is the biggest mistake that people make because they think that, hey, I can see a car coming, I'm going to be able to jump out of the way if I need to. By the time a driver is swerving into the lane and you realize that, you're going to have less than 5 seconds to deal with that, and the driver is not going to be able to brake in time at all. So it's very important that you bike with traffic so a driver can slow down or only just hit your bike if they do hit you. Here's some easy state solutions. separating the bike lanes with physical medians. Even though that is expensive, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, if you are in a state like Florida that does suffer a lot of bicyclist deaths, they do provide up to $14 million worth of money to help improve your infrastructure. Unfortunately, that's debatable where all that goes because it's just given as a block grant for roads, so you could use that just to repair a road but not specifically increase the safety of a bike lane. Adding feet to a bike lane, the standard is 5 feet, so if I were to fall into the lane, right, a good part of me would still be exposed and I could risk being run over. But if you increase a bike lane to 10 feet, or in this picture 12 feet, you're able to fall without worry of being hit by a car. Now, a lot of intersections in Gainesville they do have signs that give bicyclists the right of way, but myself included, I typically ignore these when I'm on my daily commute to school or work. So it's important that the state pay closer attention to making it noticeable that bikers should have the right of way when you are changing lanes. And the Alachua County Police Department does give out free bicycle helmets and lights to help increase your visibility. Lights do increase your visibility by 450 feet depending on how bright they are. But again, most of the people biking daily or weekly are poor and can't afford to fix their bike constantly, so the police department should consider adapting, giving out brake pads that can stop with full control, checking your blind spots if you do bike in the road with a rearview mirror, and just having a safety vest on. So now all of this, okay, cool, I still own a bike, I'm probably not gonna buy a bike, so when is this information gonna be useful? Oh, just kidding, before I get to that, make sure that your bike is working, of course, and you do have reflectors on your bike when you are on the road. Of course, companies come out with non-harmful sprays that could help with that. But now you're wondering, what is the big deal? Pop quiz. First question, which person is easier to see, especially at night?
Light clothing.
Thank you, Wes. Light clothing, perfect. This biker right here, it's really hard to see. He's wearing a dark gray sweater and black pants. Again, this road doesn't have any street lights, that's a big problem. But aside from that, a car is given maybe under 3 seconds to stop if they are going faster than 40 miles per hour, which most people are. However, it's super easy to see these people with their vests and socks on, especially because they have their own lights portraying the road, so that way they don't fall and risk getting injury, because according to the Center for Disease and Control, injuries are the second most popular injury, just falling. Alright, so we've covered the main causes of accidents and how to bike safely in the road, the importance of what to wear and how to be cautious. So now we're going to move to pedestrian precautions that you should be taking when you're crossing the road, especially when it comes to just looking at your phone while you're crossing the road. But at some point in the day, we're all pedestrians, and pedestrians, are even in our music, like by Drake. Street's not safe, but I never run away. So even in music, it's important that Drake acknowledges the dangers of walking down the street. And again, Florida unfortunately has been the top 3 states for the most dangerous fatality rates for the past 3 years, according to the National Transportation Safety Administration. And part of that reason, again, are, unfortunately, elderly drivers are killing elderly people on the road, which is not a good combination. Mainly due to 70% being at night, not during the day as much, but again, people walking during rush hour. Jaywalking is a major issue that should be addressed, and not wearing reflective clothing. So some of the errors, again, that they're assuming the right of way when they're crossing the street. Many of our crossing signs are paired with the green light, so just because it says you can cross now, that doesn't actually mean you can. You have to make sure you look right and both right and left ways before you go. Drunk driving is actually a major issue. Actually, it's kind of a major issue for both. 33% of pedestrians are drunk when they are killed, and only 13% of drivers are drunk when they kill a pedestrian, so it's really more of a pedestrian error, but again, most of the accidents do happen from the driver's side. So drivers are more likely to hit pedestrians when there are no sidewalks provided by the state, so they're forced to walk on the side of the road or close to it. Again, people who stop late at a traffic light force pedestrians into the crosswalk. And finally, when you have construction forcing them into the middle of the road, it does make it a lot harder to stay safe. And without light, it's really hard to see pedestrians. According to the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Center, most people are hit just because of a lack of street lights, and they don't have lights on them. So make sure you're not crossing the street with your phone. Again, jaywalking is a big problem. In this picture, it's really hard to see if there's a woman with a black sweater on and black jeans. Again, you assume that the car can see you, but in this picture, if you're the car, it'd be really hard to see them, especially at night. So some easy solutions for this would be to have flags. In St. Augustine, they have flags when you're crossing the street, so you can wave to drivers and get their attention, or just lighting up a crosswalk. Adding a speed bump or a roundabout would be like a traffic slowing measure, so that way you could reduce the actual length of the sidewalk and the crosswalk, so you would reduce risks. And then if you have more money, like in Orlando, you can create overhead bridges. Some companies do make some really cool pedestrian reflective jackets. Again, if you don't want to walk around like this all day, you can turn it inside out so you don't have to feel embarrassed. But yeah, just make sure you're keeping your phone like in your pocket when you're crossing the street or anything like that. And we're gonna watch a quick video on the importance of reflective stuff. Oops. Alright. So the goal of this video is to see how many people you can spot running down the street. 3, 4, 5,
No, I see like 7, 5.
5, 6. Wow.
Oh shit! That's a lot of people.
Okay, so as you can see, the importance of reflective clothing is super apparent because the guy on the far left is not visible at all. Neither is the guy really on the right. And it is very important to be seen. Okay, back to where we were. Okay. So yeah, wearing reflective gear can increase your visibility by 450 feet. And another pop quiz for you guys, since I know you like it. Is it safe to cross?
No.
No, good. Do you have the right of way in this photo?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
What?
Because sometimes it's paired with the green light, so you have to check right to left to make sure that that car isn't going in the middle of the intersection. Now, do you have the right of way?
Yes.
No.
See?
Most pedestrian accidents actually happen when a pedestrian first crosses the street and people are running red lights or making a rolling stop and turning right. Now that you guys know all the safety tips on how to bike safely on the road, you're prepared for the National Bike Safety Month in May, and drive like your mom is in the crosswalk. Thank you.